live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is why the Hukumuri Pride is such a firm favourite.
It's Kinky Tail.
He just looks ready for a fight. This is still her territory. The Evoker boys are here to stay. Ooh. How insane was that?
Hello, and welcome to this, the 26th episode of Safari Lives, the show where we get to summarize the week and what's been happening with our very special animal characters. Now, my name is Jamie, and this afternoon we have very special things to talk about. This afternoon, and it is a very muggy afternoon, Craig is on camera with me. It is 35 degrees in Djuma, which is about 95 in Fahrenheit. And once again, the clouds are building, promising, hopefully, a little bit more rain to help relieve us from the dry spell. Remember, this is just like any other live safari, whether it's the sunset or the sunrise, it's still interactive. Now, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter is how you can send through your questions, alternatively on the comments section of YouTube. Safari Lives is all about getting right down into the depths and the meat of what's going on with our various animals, finding out what they've been up to and, of course, where they've been.
This week, summer continued with full force in the Lowveld. In South Africa, Hosanna continued to roam the centre of Djuma, while Tlalamba seemed reluctant to move far from Torchwood Dam in the absence of her mother. The Duke patrolled the eastern edge of Djuma, while his rival neighbour, Hukumuri, stalked to the west. The Talamati male took a break from his Mangeni companions, and the Nkuhumas moved between Djuma and Torchwood. Up in the Mara, we caught up with both the massive Olololo and tiny Owino prides.
Now, it is a time to go back into the history of the various animals. Now, we're outside the tent looking at the collection of bones which tell a story. We're not going to go into quite that level of morbid. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about little Tlalamba, which means that you must think of all the questions that you would really like to ask about the little princess, daughter of Thandi. And we're going to be going back in time because, of course, Tlalamba just turned a year old very, very recently. As I said, where has the time gone? Perhaps James Hendry knows.
I think it's the same elephant too, actually. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Safari Live, episode 26, I think it is. Now, we have got some elephants over here. Before I tell you about the elephants, let me introduce myself. My name is James Hendry, and on camera, after 4-century hiatus, is Jean-Dre Garding. Wonderful. Good stuff. Okay, now we have this herd of elephants here, and quite by chance, we have found the herd of elephants that has the very tiny baby in it. And while this is a character-focused show, and we'd like you to send your questions on our characters to the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, otherwise the chat stream on YouTube, we do have now a tradition called Clip of the Week. And clip. With summer heat comes rain and babies. This little fellow experienced his first swimming lesson at just a few weeks old, helped by the careful attentions of the whole herd. Life is a series of mysterious adventures for him, with Mother as a massive but very gentle guide. His coordination is going to take a bit of work. Imagine having a pool noodle strapped to the front of your face. This is how useful his trunk is right now. Likewise, his legs are not quite as sturdy as they will be one day. But he already has a very intimidating stare. Now, I'm not sure how far into my introduction you got, but that, believe it or not, is the very same elephant that you saw in that lovely little clip. And, so, right, so apparently I just said moment of the week. Right, well, you've seen the moment of the week, new tradition, and that is the elephant, quite by chance, that featured in the clip of the week. Tiny, tiny little baby had his first swimming lesson, and he's very tired, you can see. His trunk's still utterly useless. And there's his long-suffering mother. Now, they do belong, of course, I think, to the short trunk herd. She is not the short trunk female, but I think the one behind might be the short trunk female, maybe. Anyway, let's just keep looking at this little baby, and we'll try and confirm that. So this little thing has been around now for a few weeks. Probably 2 weeks. I don't think it's older than that. You can see it is just very unable to make use of its muscles or its nervous system just yet. It's all still, everything's firing in the wrong places, and limbs are doing unexpected things. The trunk is definitely doing thousands of unexpected things. And as I said there in that little highlight, it must be very much like having a pool noodle strapped to your face. Hilary, you say you enjoyed the analogy of the pool noodle stuck to the face. Yes, I imagine that's what it must be like. I'm just going to quickly get on the radio, keep enjoying. Orbs, I did check from the area from this morning, but I didn't come up with anything. I've got some elephants now on Rebecca's. So I was just telling Aubrey, who is obviously... Sorry, I'm just listening to the radio. Okay, copy, thanks. He's just telling us where Hosanna is, or where he was. Alrighty, so we've got this little elephant in his herd, and he's got 2 weeks behind him, and hopefully another 65 or so years ahead of him. I'm saying him, I don't know that he's a him. I don't think I saw that he was a him. But I'm just guessing he's a him, so we can take a look forward to his life. 60 years from now, if you can believe it, it will of course be the year 2078. Now, I know most of us will no longer be extant in the year 2078. Some of us might, but most of us won't. And this little elephant has got quite a life ahead for himself. From here, of course, he has about 12 years in his herd, and this little herd will spend, well, Jamie says she thinks she saw this one yesterday and she thinks it's a her. Well, I'm going to continue without more solid evidence, I'm going to continue with a him because I had a little story planned, you see. And so he's got about 12 years left in the herd, and eventually then the hormones of adolescence are going to start coursing through his body, and by the time he's 15 or so, then the matriarch of whatever herd he belongs to, most likely the same one that he belongs to now, will toss him out and tell him that it's unacceptable that the way he's behaving, and then he will have to join up with some friends, form a little bachelor group. Oh, this is just too magic. Look at this. Form a little bachelor group. Hopefully they'll be taught the ropes by a big old bull who will have to discipline them, probably with violence, unfortunately, but that's often the only way that young males learn. And then he'll progress into maturity at around about, let's say, the age of 25. He might be lucky to find a lady between 25 and 30, but possibly even after 30. And then he will join the ranks of the fathers of the elephant world until he's around about 60 years old. So all that to look forward to, and he doesn't even have to go to school. Isn't he lucky? Doesn't have to go to school. You know what? This is a very special little elephant, and it's not the same one that we had in the clip. I can tell that because there's no pink on that one. It's the same age, though, as that little thing. It may even be smaller. Anyway, a very close elephant to what we had in that highlight clip. All right, let's go across to David in the Maasai Mara. I believe that he has got some eland, I think, so let's go and see them clicking their way across the plains, hopefully avoiding the lions.
A very good afternoon and welcome to the Mara Triangle, and how nice to see baby Ellie with James there. And I'm sure all of you, or most of you, may want to know what is my favorite animal in the African wilderness, which happens to be the elephant, and especially the small little babies, because of how sometimes they behave when they become so playful and also when they're so full of nonsense. My name is David, that has not changed, and with me on camera today is another James from Kenya. James, good afternoon, sir. We're very good. We have that James in South Africa, but we have another James from Kenya. I'll be telling you the differences between these two Jameses. Now, most important, remember, we'll be happy if you keep talking to us by asking us questions or sending comments through. As usual, I'm sure James might have told you, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can keep following us on the YouTube chat stream. Feels a bit cool here, unlike South Africa. 29 degrees Celsius and 84 degrees Fahrenheit. But the most important thing, I have to let you know, the short trains have officially started. Now, these animals here, the zebras and the elands, are feeding very close to those big trees there. And I guess the reason for them to do that is to shield themselves from the strong wind. If you can look on the grass there and see how it's being blown by the wind, and the trees in the background, it's very strong wind. These are the common zebras, and they're just grazing together with the largest antelopes that we got in Africa, the elands. When migration is on, we'll always see the wildebeest together with the zebras, and occasionally the elands tagging along together, making almost 2 million animals moving between Kenya and Tanzania. But not all animals will shift. And I think James wants to show us different. Yes, there's another third species in the same area. And we got toppies there. So it's very interesting how animals will always come together depending on what's happening out in the field. And apart from the toppies, now James is saying he is not tired of showing us a different species and not very far from the other animals. And these are ellies. Well, I think this is a very good beginning for us. And I might be taking you back again to South Africa because Jamie is in the tent and she wants to talk about a cat.
Do want to talk about a cat. Before I talk about a cat, I want to say that we're in dire need of some more props in our tent. I feel as though the skulls have been so overused to the point at which, of course, this leopard skull has been glued back together. But I can't think what we could that would be appropriate to what it is we're talking about. Leopard print seems somewhat tasteless, and the only thing we really have is a leopard skull, fortunately not belonging to any of our familiar leopard characters. Right, I mentioned that we were going to go back in time. It's little Tlalamba's first birthday, or it was just a few days ago. Now let's go all the way back in time to before Tlalamba, when we just realized that Tundi was pregnant. So there we go, my favorite leopard of all the leopards out here. I have a very soft spot for the lovely Tundi. Now, I was not here, I was in Kenya, but just have a look, just stop here. This is where she was heavily pregnant. Let's just go back, if we can, just a fraction to where her back leg wasn't in the way of her belly. There we go. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Now, I confess, I find it extraordinarily difficult to find or to tell the difference between a leopard that has a baby and a leopard that has a food baby. Typically, what we tend to say is if you look at Tundi's belly here, and here she was definitely heavily pregnant, you can see how it's sort of the bulge is sort of towards her back legs, not towards the front part of her belly. Now, she might also have had a small meal there, but I don't think so. I think that in itself is pure belly. Now, apparently, this is very similar to what she looked like just a few days ago, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, okay, we can carry on. Now, it's difficult to tell when a cat is pregnant. I find it difficult, especially since she only had one, but we can look at the behavior of a leopard. Now, apparently, Tundi was climbing into this termite ground. Okay, pause here. Now, I can promise you we're going to have lots of very cute little moments, but let's try and focus. Try and focus on not the tiny little spotted thing in here, and have a look at this den site that Tundi chose. Does it not remind you, those of you who were watching Safari Live when Karula had Hosanna and Shongile, is it not an almost identical den site? Do you not think that perhaps, interestingly enough, Tundi might just have chosen a den that she herself spent a bit of time in as a cub? Because, of course, Tundi's taken over from Karula's territory, and this is where she grew up. It just seems to me too coincidental that she chose a place like this, hidden in a drainage line or a dried-up river system in the pile of logs. All right, let's continue on, because I know you just want to see the cuteness of Tlalamba. Look at little Tlalamba's hesitant first steps. Those giant paws. I'm convinced she's going to be much larger than Tundi when she's fully grown. Stalking through the grass, fierce little predator. Quite terrifying. Now, all of this, of course, was essential to her survival skills. Learning to climb at such a young age, at just a few weeks, was essential. You can see she was only exploring with Mum around. She's calling to Mum. And in those first few weeks, she would have stayed right up close to Tundi. Tiny little legs. And what makes me sort of sad is that I missed when Tundi was nice to Tlalamba as she was there. She looked calm. She looked relaxed. Oh, okay. Just a cute little example of Tlalamba hiding. Also an essential skill. Now, I missed all of this, which is deeply tragic for me. I was very sad that I missed the birth of Tundi's cub, the first cub that she'd had on Djuma. Now, I mentioned that I missed out on Tundi being nice to Tlalamba. The only time I've ever seen the two of them together, Tundi is constantly snarling at her. It's part and parcel of the process of independence. It's now a year later. Tlalamba is no longer this tiny little bundle of fluff that needs protecting. She's a sub-adult in her own right, almost an adult, and she's got to learn to be independent. And although Tundi has up until recently been with her the entire step of the way, like mothers with teenage daughters, it sort of gets to the point where there's a few snarly lips and the odd growl. All part of discipline. So the very first time that I saw Tlalamba, there was no love from Tundi. She walked up to Tundi and she just got which is Tundi's standard response. Now, Jemiah, you want to know how long will a den site smell like Tundi? That's a really difficult question to answer because it depends on how long she spent there. Obviously, the longer she spent there, the more it's going to retain the scent of her. If it's sandy, if it's rock, because obviously those different things will absorb scent in a different way. Trees, leaves, whatever happens to be, then of course it depends upon if it rains. Now, I imagine that, let's say, that den site on the sandy soil surrounded by sticks, I imagine that her scent would maybe stick around for 2 or so days. Animals, of course, have a very strong sense of smell, particularly something like a hyena, so maybe they'd be able to smell her for longer. We, of course, are so useless we wouldn't be able to smell it at all. Now, we might not be able to sniff out the animals, but that doesn't mean we're not going to give it a jolly good try, which is what Lauren is doing as she tries to find Hosanna.
Yes, I am giving it a jolly good try to try and look for Hosanna himself. I am Lauren, and on camera we have Sebastian. So yes, we are looking for the little chief himself, and it's not been easy. today. We did spot him yesterday and he has been sighted around this area. So we're not going to give up. We're going to keep looking. But I have had some amazing experiences with Hosanna this last week. So let's take a look at what our cheeky little chief got up to. The little chief took up his residency at the Boyatella Pan. With little rain and the oppressive heat of the day, the pan presented a potential buffet of prey for Hosanna. Alas, as has become a custom, the hyenas of Juma would not allow Hosanna an easy meal, disrupting the scene and the little chief's concentration. Wasn't that an amazing moment with the little chief? Getting all annoyed by the hyena who keeps trying to disrupt his feeding. They are the main competitors of one another, hyenas and leopards, and they both I believe, they both know where they stand with one another. So we just have some traffic coming along, so we're just waiting until that passes, and then we'll continue on our journey looking for the little chief. Now, we normally find him. We just need a little bit of time. He's a little bit better at hiding than you would think. Good afternoon. So yes, we're going to keep looking for him and see what we can find. Let's go. Vicky, yes, he is. Hosanna is okay with the hyenas. He's obviously a young cat. He's going to be 3 in February, so he's 2 3/4. Is that correct? So he's still young, he's still learning, but he's slowly developing into a man. And hopefully we'll be able to find him to show you exactly what we're talking about. So yes, he is okay with them. Leopards and hyenas both steal each other's kills, believe it or not. So they will pinch food off one another when they can. And sometimes they have even been sighted feeding on the same kill at the same time. Where are you, boy? So while we continue looking our search, let's go over to see what James has found.
Unfortunately, I found you a termite mound, but this is the termite mound that Aubrey says Hosanna was last seen near this morning. It does not appear to be near it anymore. That particular termite mound, you might say to yourself, but how on earth can you possibly pick a termite mound from all the other termite mounds that are all over this place? And the answer is, of course, that it is an old hyena den. And I know it's an old hyena den, and everyone knows it is an old hyena den, so I've come to the old hyena den to see if Hosanna is at the old hyena den, but he is not at the old hyena den, and now I don't know what to do. So let's turn round. Whoops, daisies, we appear to have picked up a small tree. Aubrey said he was next to this termite mound between these two dead trees, just on our right-hand side. Now, I'm not entirely surprised that he isn't in exactly the same place that he was this morning, but we're going to do our level best to try and find him. What is that? That's a wildebeest. Just a wildebeest. While we look at this wildebeest and appreciate his existence, let us go to Jamie Patterson in the tent to talk about seeing him on foot.
Yes, seeing Hosanna on foot indeed. We'll get back to Shalamba. We're just going to take a quick break. I have to say, this is a very relaxing way to spend a Monday afternoon. All I have to do is watch what the others are getting up to and listen to what it is they're saying. But I just had to interject because I discovered something this morning. Well, I didn't. Herbie did, which I'm sure you're all very interested to know about. Hosanna nearly got caught by a lion last night. We only discovered this as we were walking back towards camp, and we could see Hosanna's tracks walk into a lion. The tracks in the dirt told the entire story. Could see him walk into the lion, saw the lion take off after him, and Hosanna was running to the point his claws were clearly visible in the wet sand. I mean, he was sprinting. He got trapped up against a tree, managed to loop around. Then he went to go run up another big tree, and he overshot the mark. You could see it all in the tracks perfectly. You could see where he skidded. He overshot the mark. The lion ran next to him and grabbed a piece of his tail as Hosanna shot up, and you could see the claw marks as he went up the tree. He's absolutely unscathed. He's fine. He might have a little bit of a bald patch off his tail because there was a big chunk of fur, complete with rosettes. So he had a really, really narrow miss last night. It looks like it was one of the evoker males. You can relax, though, because we didn't know any of this morning, and it happened before we saw him. We didn't know any of this, and we found him on foot looking perfectly okay. So everything is all hunky-dory. You don't need to worry about Hosanna. Young leopards. They do cause us serious anxiety attacks. Watching them grow up is both an extraordinary experience and at the same time it's slightly terrifying, especially when they're as young as Tlalamba once was and just as vulnerable. As you can see, Tundi's patience had already started to run out when Tlalamba was just a few weeks old. There's a reason Tundi has such a soft spot in my heart. Down we go back into the hollow of the tree. So already Tlalamba was showing that ability to, well, hide, which is so crucial to leopards' survival. Wow. That was just a shameless excuse to show you her as she grew up a little bit. And just a little bit, what was I going to say? More adorable. Now, what we wanted to talk about a little bit was the difference between Tlalamba and Tamba, and the way in which it seems as though Tundi produces offspring with the biggest paws and the biggest ears in the entire world. So if we go back and have a look quickly at those ears over there, are they going to come back? There we go. No, that's still me. Hello. Those ears there, those little ears. Those ears. That is the adorable little Tlalamba. Now, I do have a picture of a Tamba, but due to an issue with internet, I haven't managed to actually call it up. But just memorize those ears. Look at those massive ears. You can't see her paws at the moment. And look at those eyes. And a little bit later, I'm going to show you a picture of a Tamba. And you can have a look and see just how similar Tundi's offspring are. They all have these enormous ears. They all tend to grow into them. Tambas were extraordinary, though. Tamba was a little bit almost Dumbo-esque. If he'd flapped his ears quite hard, he might have been able to take off. Fortunately, he never needed to because, of course, being a leopard, he had the extraordinary climbing skills and jumping skills. Now, well, Lauren has been off, I believe, looking for Hosanna. She hasn't found Hosanna. She has found the biggest potential threat to both Hosanna and Tlalamba.
Yes, so things happen when you don't least expect them, and we were looking for Hosanna, and we have came across a male leopard called Hukumuri. Now, this leopard in front of us does have a kill stashed up a tree here, and that's exactly why he's in this area. You can see way up the tree in the fort, we have what looks to be an impala. It's just hidden behind the branches here. So this kill got up the tree by Hukumuri himself. Leopards are notorious for dragging their prey and hoisting them up the tree. They can hoist almost double their own body weight up a tree when they really need to. So Hukumuri here is a dominant territorial male, and he is the one that clashes regularly with Hosanna's father, Tingana. So their territories meet on the edge of one another, and Hukumuri has been known to try and claim some of Tingana's territory when he has been unwell and not really up to his normal standards. So what a find! Now, we are not alone at the sighting. There are other vehicles in case you hear any noise, but clearly this leopard is just enjoying. Yeah, he has a very full belly, and he's just enjoying some cool breeze coming through. It's been a really another hot day here. Yes, I agree. I hope Hosanna can avoid Hukumuri. I don't know what would happen if they encountered one another, but I do know that Hosanna would run. He's still a young boy, as we mentioned, so it wouldn't be great if he came across this dominant male. He is around here somewhere. We will continue our search for him once we leave Hukumuri here. And you can see he's panting really heavily. So he's quite full, he's hot, he's resting, and of course digesting. He will monitor that kill up in the tree for quite some time. He's got to fend off possible hyenas that might come around and possible other leopards that might try and steal it. He's got quite a job on his hands. So you go out looking for one leopard and you come across another. So while we stay with Hukumuri a little bit longer, we're going to throw you all the way up north to the Mara with David to see what he has found.
Very well done for seeing Hukumuri. And I remember my days in South Africa. Hukumuri would very easily make a piece of, easy work to bring warthog down. Well done. And we got different cats here, and we got a whole pride of lions here. And this is the Olololo pride. And because I guess it's a bit chilly, all of them are tucked in that grass in a little lager-like. And near those rocks, which I hope those rocks are radiating some heat to them, I would guess. And they were seen not very far from this area this morning by Tristan and James. And I thought as soon as we left camp, I told James we're going to swing by and find out if they could be in the same area. If they had eaten, chances are they may tend to stay where they are now. And that lager they're in, there's always a stream not very far from there where they would easily get some water. Apparently, this pride of lion is very good, and when it comes to hunting, they're very effective, and they could hunt anybody. It started as an easy afternoon for this Olololo pride. All 16 lions regrouped as darkness fell. Lions take advantage of the darkness to hunt, and this night was not an exception. The first target was a hippo who found herself in the wrong place and at the wrong time. However, the young hippo outwitted the Olololos. Welcome back live, and you have seen these youngsters, especially the two you see there. I'm not sure they're the same one. They tried to bring a hippo down, and it's not very easy for lions to bring hippopotamus down. Hippos are very clever animals and not easy just to prey on them, as lions are used to, for example, bringing zebras or wildebeest down. That particular hippo youngster, it was late at night, and the Olololos are about 16 when they are all together in the whole pride. And these were just two youngsters who were just playing with that hippo. And the adults, I think, in that pride thought, let's not waste our energy, let's not waste our time trying to bring down this hippo. We better try something else. And a day later, they brought down a wildebeest, which I think was an easier bet for them than trying to bring down a hippo. Now we're going to go back to these Olololos here, and for those of you who are joining us now, I want to put my head down because James says my head doesn't look as good as the lions, and I think he has a point. This pride is called the Olololo, and whether they are 16 in number at the moment, I have counted 10, and remember the drives that we do are very interactive, so should you have any comments or any questions, you can send them through #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can keep following us on the YouTube chat stream. Now, one thing that I respect these lions for is their strength in numbers. Stiley, I think you got a point there, and you're asking if it was daylight. they would have succeeded. It could be a 50-50 chance here, because I've seen lions taking advantage of darkness to hunt, and this should have been a great moment for them to hunt. But now I'm looking at this hippo having spent about 11-12 hours in water and only coming out at night to eat. And you come out and you're welcomed by lions. You're hungry, you've been starving the whole day, and the first thing you come out of water are lions. I think he was like, I'm not ready to die, I'm ready to eat. But again, it could have gone either way. And looking at the many times I've seen lions hunting at night, and particularly hunting hippos, I have seen them being more successful at night than during the day. This maybe they were just unlucky. And as you saw, every time the lions went round maybe to bring down this hippo from the back, the youngster hippo was very clever. He kept turning around, and once in a while he could open his mouth and growl at them, and the lions would easily back up. I don't think they're very experienced, these youngsters. They need maybe more time to watch their mothers keeping hunting, because that would make the whole difference for them. As yet, they can chance maybe on an impala or smaller game, but maybe not big or dangerous animals like, the hippos. Well, I'm talking of the Olololo pride of lions here, and I'm sure James would be happy to talk of a different pride in South Africa.
Yes, I will just now. I will shortly talk about the pride in question once I have spoken of the enormous eagly. Can you see it? Oh, yes, there it is. Now, why, you might ask yourself, is an eagly on the ground? If it is not sitting on perhaps a rabbit. Sorry, Jean-Louis, I can't see what's going on this monitor. You got him there. Ah. Now, that is because this is most likely a steppe eagly, and the steppe eagly is a devourer of termites. It'll eat other things as well, but termites are largely its diet. And that's, I suspect, what it's found. Brent spoke a lot about the alates this morning, the flying termites that are going to try and start new mounds. And that was probably what it's eating. I'm going to try and move around, get a slightly better view. The Nkuhuma pride, of course, is quite similar to the Olololo pride in some ways, given that they are both lions. That's the major similarity, of course, between the Nkuhumas and the Olololo pride. The other similarity, though, is, of course, that the males, the young males in the pride, are going to have to find a way in the world that is, I think, very traumatic in the wilderness. The Olololos, of course, have a number of young males, quite a few, and the Nkuhumas have got their own young male, the Talamati male, and of course the 3 mangy Mangeni males lurking about on the outsides. There it is. Can you see the bird? Say when. Has got, okay? Anyway, while we get a look at this bird, the important thing to remember is that the Olololos will be able to make a coalition on their own, because there are so many of them, those young males, and then they'll go off and forge their way in the wilderness. Whereas the Nkuhumas, or the Nkuhuma male lion, is going to struggle to do that unless the Talamati, his cousin, hangs around, all those mangy Manganes hang around, and he manages to forge some sort of friendship with them. And the Nkuhumas, unfortunately, have disappeared since yesterday, but we did find them yesterday, and we found them a few days before that, well, 2 of them anyway, on a zebra kill.
The Nkuhumas have been in a little turmoil of late. Split for some reason, quite possibly because the evokers have been around, threatening the young males. Amber Eyes has not let this affect her appetite at all, and if I was a male lion, I would be deeply intimidated by her size and piercing glare. Nothing, of course, gets in the way of a lioness and her sleep, not even the threat of a male coalition. In this case, probably because she knows that any male in the Lowveld summer will not move more than half an inch while the sun is up.
Right, well, there you are. You can see that the voiceover didn't quite match the pictures that you were watching, but that's simply because I find the story of the males in their pride most fascinating indeed. And I think that is why that they've split up, and there was just Amber Eyes and that other female. The males were not far from there. The young males, we did see them the next day, the mangy Mungans, not the other male, but he was calling somewhere close by, and where the rest of the pride was apparently was Arethusa, which is off to the west of here. So I think the presence of the Avoca males in the area has perhaps chopped up with the pride, and I think that they are trying to perhaps protect the youngsters from the marauding Avocas, although they're not really marauding. They are very sort of hipster, if you like. Let's go back to Lauren now, who is younger than I and understands hipsters. I suspect she is, of course, with a gangster.
Yes, we did move on from Hukumuri and we have came across this herd of wildebeest. And look at that little baby. It's so cute. And I could honestly say this baby is most likely a week or so old. Just like the impala lambs that are being born, it's birthing season. It's also similar for the wildebeest. And we have spotted a few young ones around who are just a matter of weeks old. So moving from a leopard to a very popular item of prey, the wildebeest. Many animals out here will feed on wildebeest. However, I don't imagine a leopard like Hosanna taking on a herd like this. I think wildebeest are very strong, muscular, and look at they come equipped with their own weapons such as horns. However, the babies are very vulnerable. Even though it's walking, it's moving, it's staying close to the herd, they're very vulnerable from predators. So we did come across a dead wildebeest recently who made a delicious snack for many lions that came into town. So let's take a look when a Talamati male came across this deceased wildebeest. A mysteriously deceased wildebeest appeared laid out for the predators of Djuma to feast on. The Talamati male made claim to it, seizing the opportunity for a full meal, having been rumoured to now be excluded from the Nkuhumas. Bloated and showing signs of a breached birth, the sadness of the scene was undeniable, yet the necessity for the lion to eat was clear. As the heat of the day started to settle, the male attempted to move the carcass. With little to no luck, he left for a shaded spot nearby to nurse his ego and watch over his meal, not allowing any creature to come close to his claim. That was indeed a hard sighting to watch. However, nature is nature, and of course the wildebeest had died of natural causes and was stumbled across by the Talamati male. When we went back to the carcass later, there was the Nkuhuma pride taking on the carcass and hyenas around. So that Talamati male was lucky and he definitely got in there first, although he wasn't doing a very good job of trying to move it into the shade. So there isn't as many wildebeest around here as there is in the Maasai Mara. However, there is obviously small populations of them around protecting their babies. So while we stay with the wildebeest, let's go over to Jamie for more discussions on the leopards.
What little gangsters those wildebeest are, and what a little gangster this little chap is. I promised you a picture of a tumba. And there you go, there, those massive ears. I wasn't planning on it being such a small screen, but we will make it do with what we have. That photo is a courtesy of Louise, and it is a truly lovely photo. And that is tumba. Now, those of you who know tumba quite well, or know tlalamba quite well, you will have noticed that they have the same very serious expression. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the length of their faces combined with the size of their ears, but there's something about them that's very pensive. They're pensive cats. And Tlalamba, that was the first thing that struck me with Tlalamba, was that she was very thoughtful looking, and she looked at me with very serious eyes. I don't know if she inherited it from Tingana, because of course Tamba and Tlalamba are full siblings. They're not half siblings, as often happens in the leopard world. They're both of them, their father is Tingana, and both of them, of course, their mother is Tandi. Now, with a name like Tlalamba, you're not really thinking pensive. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. But once upon a time, Tlalamba was not nearly as serious as she is now. Well, the more we got to know the little lady, the more we started to get a really good idea as to her character and personality. And she had people around the world enthralled. I know she had Tristan wrapped around her little toe, just due to the incredibly playful and entertaining nature of her personality. Hence the name Tlalamba. Now, Tlalamba was chosen by the guides who work and spend a lot of time on this reserve. So between Taxon, Rexon, Herbie and Aubrey, they chose a selection of names, which was then, of course, voted upon, and Tlalamba was the chosen result. Now, it basically, to sum up the meaning of it, it's a sort of a mischievous and playful leopard. Well, not leopard, but it's mischievous and playful. So mischievously playful or playfully mischievous. You can work out whatever way you want to say it. Now, lots of people struggle with the pronunciation of the little princess's name. I'm sure you've had plenty of lectures in the past, but you never know. We have new viewers who might struggle. So what I'm going to do is not meant to be in any way patronizing to you. But this is how I was taught to say the various combination of consonants that you do find in the African languages of South Africa. So the TL at the start of her name is pronounced Kla, right? And the way that I was taught when I was a kid at school was our teacher used to make us say each vowel. Okay, so repeat after me. I, of course, have no idea if you're doing this. You don't have to repeat that part. Kla, kle, kli, klo, klu. Kla, kle, kli, klo, klu. Kla, kle, kli, klo, klu. Tlalamba. Tlalamba. Tla-la-la-la-lamba. Yeah? You getting it? It's not a terribly easy name to pronounce, but it does fit her perfectly. And I think we'll start to see that side come back out of her personality once she gains a little bit of confidence. At the moment, her life is a bit confusing and a bit scary. Tandi hasn't been around her all that much. I don't know if she has gone back to Tlalamba. That's it. Tla. Jackie, apparently you say bless you. Our teacher used to make us do it, and I'm very grateful for it because I didn't grow up in an area that really a lot of Zulu or Shangaan was spoken. It was predominantly English. So I'm really grateful for the lessons that I received. It's like the letter HL as well, which is a hla. So just be glad that we didn't name her Tlalamba, which is a bit different to Tlalamba. You got it? Yes? That sounds absolutely identical? No, our beard, there's not really a T sound. It's there, but it's very underemphasized. Tlalamba. Tlalamba. It's the Tlalamba. Tlalamba. Now I'm starting to mess it up myself because I'm overemphasizing it. Tlalamba. Right. You know what I would really like to see? Is for our wonderful Scottish lady to say a Tlalamba with her Edinburgh accent.
Oh, that is a big challenge for a Scottish person. Okay, here goes. Tlalamba. Was that right? I'm looking at Seb's expression. He's smiling. I think it was semi-right. Oh, thank you, Kirsty, 100%. So just in front of us flew a grey hornbill with something in its mouth, and we're actually having a discussion here about what on earth is in its mouth. Kirsty, do you have any idea? Do anybody watching have any idea? I thought it looked like a piece of wood. but we're really not sure. Yes, Kirsty thinks it looks like bark too. I think I might be right on this one. And I wonder what on earth it's doing with the bark. It's probably looking to give it to a lady. Hornbills are very famous for their nuptial gifts that they present to ladies, but I don't see any other grey hornbill in sight. So this poor bird is all on his lonesome with a piece of bark in his mouth. What are you going to do with that? We did hope it would be something a little bit more exciting than bark. However, it's not. At least I got to say that leopard's name right on camera. Everyone agrees that it's bark. Perfect. Seb thought it might be something a little bit more exciting. So we are going to keep driving, and hopefully that little hornbill will find someone to give that bark to. Heartbreaking if he doesn't. So we're still on the search for Hosanna. At least I can say that one correctly. The Scottish girl has had some issues with pronunciation out here, and the rest of the team are very much enjoying how wrong I say things. And I'm sure they're all laughing in FC right now. However, I'm not going to go into any more details than that. Kirsty is asking me to say one of my fellow colleagues' name. Okay, here we go. Tristan. Did I nail it?
Tristan.
Apparently I've been putting an H in there where there's not an H. Alrighty, so while we keep on looking, we are going to send you across to James.
Oh, apparently she's... That wasn't meant to happen. What I wanted was... I wanted her to say tortoise for you. She just linked to me straight off. Anyway, here we are. What we're doing is having a quick look at the hyena den to see if there's any activity there yet. I don't think there will be, but we'll come back here later anyway. It's in the vicinity of where we were looking for Hosanna. Lauren says tortoise as follows. She says, tortoise. There is a tortoise. I said to her, what is a tortoise? She said, that is a tortoise. I said, no, that's a tortoise. She said, well, I don't know, Kirsten. You ask her to say tortoise and you tell me whether she sounds Irish or Scottish. All right, let's have a look here. Enough silliness. All righty, while we're on our way to the hyena den, we have had some activity at the hyena den this week.
Hyenas are said to have sensitive noses, about 40 times more so than humans. The satanic odour that must have assailed Corky's son in this instance indicates that their impression of pleasant versus unpleasant is completely different from ours. It's probably time we gave this delightful little fellow a name. Pretty, clearly the recent recipient of about 4 tons of meat, and her offspring have settled in at the new den. Her amazing hyena physiology turning her enormous meal into extremely rich milk. Meanwhile, in the creche, play remains good-natured, although the matriarch's son continues to dominate.
And the timing is superb. We have come to the old den, and there is Corky, and there is her little one. Marvellous. Now, I think we all agreed that this is a little boy. And what I'm going to ask you all to do, and I'm going to ask you to do this with a good grace and without fighting with each other, because I know that these things are contentious, I think that we should give this hyena a name today, this young male. I know Jamie had some suggestions this morning. She said we should name them after the theme that their mothers have, rather like they have in the North Clan. And I think because of Corky, one of the options was wine. Was it for this little fellow? I'm not sure that I'd necessarily call him wine. Anyway, I think that what you should do is send through your suggestions. We'll pick 3 and then we'll vote on them. Okay? So send through your suggestions. The suggestions received in the next 2 or 3 minutes are the ones we will use. and then we will have a little voting. Jamie has suggested types of wine, so if we get lots of types of wine suggestions, we'll definitely go with that. So Jamie has suggested types of wine. Apparently Merlot is one of the suggestions already. You like Merlot, do you? All right, okay. I quite like Viognier myself. It's a lesser known varietal, normally drunk by people who don't understand wine, which is why I quite like it. Let's go back to this magnificent hyena rather than discuss my absence of a sophisticated palate. Corky's got what can only be described as bed ear on the other side. Did you get that, Jean-Andre? Bed ear. Right, we've got Shiraz, Merlot, Bordeaux, Port. What else? Anything other than wine? I mean, I think Jamie's idea is a very good one. Bottle cap. Bottle cap. I don't think bottle cap's a good name. Peter, I'm going to vote for yours. You say plonk. I think plonk is an excellent one. An everyday plonk. Yeah, let's call him plonk. I think that's a great one. All right, well, you keep them coming, and we'll sit here, and then in 2 or 3 minutes' time, we will close the suggestion thing, and then we'll pick 3, and you can vote on them. And while you tap away your wine varietals, we're going to go back to David Gatamba Gitu, who is in the Maasai Mara, where he lives, of course, on the foot of the Olololo escarpment.
Well, I found a herd of elephants here, and they're doing something quite magical because they're climbing a very sharp hill, or do I call it a mountain? And I've been trying to work out the gradient of this hill here, as James is showing you, and I'm looking at 45 to 60 degrees climb, and that is a very tight angle for them to go all the way up. And above the ridge of the escarpment you see there, that we call the Olololo escarpment, that's where our camp is, and another very nice lodge called Angama Lodge, and the views from there are magic. Now, why I thought I'd stop here for a couple of minutes to watch those elephants and our lions, which are still very flat. I was telling James the lions are flat, they are not entertaining. Now we have another pride of lions that we call the Owinos. Owinos are only 5. The Olololo that we got here are 16 when together. But when I look at the success of these 2 prides, I think Owinos do a better job. As much as not every time they're successful, Owinos do a better job. The migration has moved out of the Mara Triangle, and the Owino pride of lions have also been missing in action. The 2 mothers prefer to stay near abundant prey for the sake of the growing youngsters, especially the young male who is still nursing wounds from an encounter with other males recently. We got lucky to come across the Owinos on a mission for prey. They did everything right and almost got lucky, but the wind was not in their favor. That happens at times. Only taking a brief respite to bond, they waited for the cover of darkness to try again. I am not sure what happened. Welcome back live. And as much as I gave lots of credit to the Owinos, or the pride of lions Owino, being 5, this particular time they were not lucky to bring the zebra down. At times when they go out hunting, things change very quickly. Now, initially when they had the plan, or when they laid down the strategy to hunt the zebra, I got a feeling the wind changed direction. And as soon as the wind changed direction, the zebras maybe very quickly smelled the lions and they took off. Well, that happens, and normally they don't give up. They'll always rest after having burned so much calories in planning on how to bring down a prey. And the same night, I left them making plans maybe to go out for another hunt. Well, the olololos here have remained flat, but elephants are doing something I said earlier that's a bit magical, because they're climbing a very sharp hill towards the Olololo escarpment. But I think now they're having a little bit of a break there before they keep going up that hill. But most likely, I was telling James, chances are our camp's not very far from the very top of that hill. And there's a small valley which I think they're going to exit from. And if they do that, they might end up near our camp tonight. And James is saying he's going to sleep, a very worried man. Anyhow, I told James not to worry because my tent is next to his. But in the meantime, we'll go down again to South Africa, and Jamie still wants to talk about leopards.
I do want to talk about leopards, but I've just been enjoying watching the scenery of the Mara because it really is so beautiful there. And of course, I spent a lot of time there. I miss it a lot more now that I've been away for an extended period of time. Right, hyena names. James has taken me slightly unawares. I didn't realize he was going to put it to a vote today. Plonk is hilarious, types of wine. I, of course, spoke about this yesterday. I mentioned it briefly about the fact that I was the one who, I didn't know at the time, I didn't think about creating a theme for each mother, but I was the one at the time who named Corky's previous cubs D1 and D2, December 1 and December 2, which of course makes life quite tricky when it comes to trying to fit them into a theme now with hindsight. There were other suggestions that I received in terms of perhaps naming them after different types of shapes, or it got quite complicated. But I'm going to leave it to James to figure out if there's a way that he can incorporate D1 and D2 into a list of, or into a theme. I don't think it's possible. We have to start somewhere. So naming within a theme, I think, might work. As I've spoken about before, or maybe I haven't. I can't remember if I was speaking to Lauren and the rest of the new guides or if I was talking to you guys. It all blurs into one after a while. Naming is something that gets taken very seriously, and it doesn't need to be. The animal doesn't mind what name it is referred to by. And we're not going to offend anyone by naming the hyenas. No one takes any interest in them. So those of you who are very keen on hyenas, get your thoughts together and see if you can figure out what a Corky's cub's name should be. The little mischief. Plonk. There goes Plonk. Oh dear. I'm derailed. I'm taken by surprise. Moving on rapidly to the subject of Tlalamba, which was our focus for the afternoon. Now, little Tlalamba, you've seen her interactions with Tundi, and I mentioned his name ever so briefly in passing, but she also has something of a, I don't know if I would describe it as close, but certainly familiar relationship with her father. Now, these sorts of interactions are truly extraordinary. There you can see Tundi chuffing to Tlalamba, presumably telling her that it is okay to approach Tingana. How leopards know this, I simply do not know. Now, here she goes. She's going to try and go nose to nose, gets a bit of a snarl. Oh, bit of a fright. Chuff, chuff, chuff in response. There's absolutely no real threat from Tingana. He just prefers to have his personal space respected. Look at the size difference there. Just look at the difference in size between a big male leopard and a tiny female leopard of just a few months. And you can really see her natural curiosity in her approach to her father. That every little sort of inch of body language just expressed curiosity. Her ears out, her nose up, inching forward, little bit of wariness, but ultimately no real fear. How do they know that? How does she, obviously this is not her first encounter with Tingana, it just happens to be one that we saw. I suspect that she encountered Tingana quite regularly when she was small. But how do they know when a male leopard is a threat? Is it something that they're taught by their mothers? Presumably. Presumably Tundi's presence in that particular instance was sufficient to encourage Tlalamba and to basically let her know that it was safe. Because as we all know, the biggest threat to young leopards is other male leopards. male leopards that do not consider themselves to be the father. Now, Tingana knows that he mated with Tundi. Therefore, regardless of whether or not Tlalamba is his daughter, she is, we're fairly certain, but, regardless of that, he still believes that she is. So in no way is he a threat to her, because his entire biological drive, the search for territory, the defense of a territory, is geared towards reproducing. That is what life wants to do out here, is to create more life. And that is ultimately what the male leopard's mission is, as for the females as well: survival and reproducing. And in this case, it would make no sense for him to harm Tlalamba, because she's carrying his genetics. She's carrying his bloodline. And what is nice for us is, as Tundi does reach old age, Tlalamba carries the last female side of Karula within this area. Of course, there's Kuchava, who is Tundi's older daughter, but she's moved quite far away. But hopefully, if Tlalamba sticks around, we're going to continue with that awareness of the queen, or the previous queen, Karula, as we go through the years, and as Tlalamba grows up. I'm hoping it might mean that we actually have Karula's granddaughter inheriting this center of her territory. It's amazing how quickly Tundi moved across into Karula's territory and took over and sort of made herself at home. I know, Debbie. That is something I noticed as well, and I didn't really mention it because we were talking about Tlalamba, but what Debbie's noticed is the difference between the greenery that was abundant when Tlalamba was little and the current state of the vegetation. And you'll see it with Lauren, you'll see it with James. It is dry and brown. Now, not a reason to panic, because although Tlalamba was born in November, a lot of those clips come from later in this year, or earlier on in this year. So it was right towards the middle and end of the rainy season, which we've only just started to go into now. So hopefully by the time March comes along, we'll actually be able to see the same level of vegetation. All right, let's go and see if James has untangled the thorny issue of naming the tiny little cub. Let's go see what it's up to.
I'm having nothing to do with untangling any thorny issue to do with anything. I don't wish to get myself in any trouble whatsoever. That is why I have put it out to the vote. What are the final three? Final control, what are the final three that we are going to choose? Apparently there's just too much pressure in the final. And so hopefully, with any luck, they will find it in themselves to get us the real three. And apparently many of you have voted Merlot, so that will be number 1 on our list. We need another 2. Surely Plonk's made it on there. Okay, lots of people like Plonk too, so Plonk is also going on there. So we've got Plonk, Merlot, and Pinotage, which of course is a South African varietal. Okay, great, that's what it is. Pinotage, Plonk, or Merlot. Now, do you guys need to set up a poll in the final control for this? Or do we just ask people to hashtag each? They're setting up a poll. How did people find the poll, Kirsten? I wouldn't have a clue. You just search the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. You'll find the poll for Plonk, Pinotage, or Merlot, and then you just click on Plonk because that's the name you want, and then we will name this cub after what you voted for. After you voted for Plonk. Many of you voting for Plonk. I think it's a wonderful name. I just can't bring myself to take this naming business particularly seriously. And I think Plonk is wonderful. Philip, actually, these hyena names that we have here are only used by Safari Live because we're the only ones who kind of name them. There's no research going on these beautiful hyenas, and so there isn't a kind of need like there is in the Maasai Mara to name them and keep records of them for research purposes. So I think it is actually only us. I don't think the Juma guides call them by the same names at all. And we, of course, have our own researchers in the way of the hyena experts that enjoy watching our show so much and do such a valuable job identifying and sending us identikits. It really is wonderful. And thank you to all of you who do make the effort to take those screenshots and identify them and find all the different spot patterns. It really is much appreciated. But no, I don't think anybody other than Safari Live calls them or names them. You know, that research project is massive in the Maasai Mara, and I asked the researchers the other day to send me a list of the number of hyena clans that there are in the Mara, and there are about 8 or 9 on each side of the river. So, I mean, if you go to the Maasai Mara National Reserve side of the river, it's probably much more than that. And most of them are named, or a lot of them are named. And so there really is extensive research going on there, and I suspect eventually, hopefully, that information will filter down into guidebooks and accessible textbooks as opposed to inaccessible academic papers. I'm sure it will, having met the ladies of the Michigan State University who are doing the valuable research. Anyway, what we have there, I suppose we better name these two as well. I don't think I'm going to take responsibility for that, though. So we've got a male and a female belonging to Pretty, the hyena, who is, of course, the mother of these two. And they're both inside there. And I think that is the female. The little male's a bit darker than his sister. And still little Plonk/Merlot/Pinotage is drinking his milk, while the other two kind of pop their heads out, hopefully, perhaps thinking that it's time for them to feed too, and hoping their mother Pretty will come back. I'm not sure what we'd use to name Pretty's cubs, if the fashion of naming them after the subject that their mothers were named of, I'm not sure. Perhaps Kirsten is suggesting beauty products. Oh, I suppose we could go down that road. What would we call the male one? Aftershave. Calvin Klein. That's not a bad one, actually. We'll call one Calvin and the other one Revlon. Alrighty, I believe Lauren has left Hukumuri, and in fact I saw her trying to come to the sighting not too long ago, so you can ask her to listen to her radio, then she'll know that I'm here. Me.
Thank you for that. Yes, we are listening to the radio, don't worry. And I believe I wasn't supposed to throw you over to James earlier, but I'm lucky I did, because I got out of pronouncing a very awkward word. But you know what? I'm going to pronounce it all for you and make you giggle as much as everyone else does. Tortoise.
Cute.
But apparently that's not right. So there you go, I said it. And Kirsty says it's amazing, so thank you so much. So we haven't had any luck looking for Hosanna. We have found a beautiful raptor in the tree as the sun is starting to set, and there's a little bit of clouds up ahead. We think it is potentially an eagle, but we're not 100% sure. So Hosanna has escaped our clutches, but I was lucky enough to spend some time with his father, Mr. Tingana, who is the dominant territorial male in this area, and of course he has many clashes with Hukumuri. So, it's an African harrier hawk. That's the one. There we go. Thank you for that, Kirst. So yes, we did see Mr. Tingana scent marking all over the area using his cheek glands, using his urine, and all different techniques to prove to Mr. Hukumuri, this is my area. Please don't come any closer. So let's take a look at those precious moments. The Duke was back and looking regal as ever. With Hukumuri circling the borders of Juma, Tingana was on patrol. He looked in prime condition as he continued on his mission, ensuring that his territory would be known to any unwanted visitors. So that was Mr. Tingana marking his territory loud and clear. Compared to his son, Hosanna, he does cover a lot more distance. He's always on patrol at the minute, and that is probably because he does know that there is another dominant male in the area. So we're not going to give up our search. We're going to keep looking. We still have time. Hosanna has to be around here somewhere. So let's see. You know, he's probably watching us and going, ha ha ha, they've just driven here and they can't see me. That is quite likely what the scenario is. But we're not going to give up. Stay with us. There's so many areas he could be. However, due to the temperatures getting much cooler now and the light breeze, the Hosanna has probably stepped out of his hiding place and will be a little bit more active now, I imagine. So, while we continue our endless search, let's go across to Jamie to hear a little bit more about Tingana.
Tingana, father, of course, to many a young leopard wandering around. Hosanna, who Lauren is searching for, and of course Tlalamba, who we are talking about now. Just remember, a quick reminder that you can send through your questions and your thoughts and your comments on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Alternatively, you can do that in the comments section of YouTube. Right, now, we spoke about a very special father-daughter relationship. Not a close one, but essential for Tlalamba's survival. Every moment of her safety depends upon whether or not a Tingana can actually fight for and maintain a territory, because as soon as another male comes in, it's an instant threat to her. And I'm starting to feel a bit more comfortable now that she's over a year old. That is when the survival rate does actually increase for young leopards. But either way, he's done a marvelous job of keeping her safe in a sort of passive kind of way, or a tangential way. Now, that was not her only encounter with her dad. Sydney actually had the two of them meet just last week. There we go. Last week, Tingana made his way. This is actually something that we showed you last week. And again, look at that. You see how she's moving around and she's chuffing. Now, chuffing is the contact sound between leopards, and that's the way in which that little bob of her head, she's going chuff, chuff, chuff. Now, in this particular instance, she largely kept her distance, although apparently, that's the chuffing again. Chuff, chuff, chuff. She largely kept her distance before approaching him at one point, and then, there you go, chuffing again, before moving off once again. Now, I suspect that she probably didn't feel all that comfortable approaching Tingana without Tundi. It didn't stop her, though, which just goes to show that that natural curiosity of young leopards runs powerfully through her veins and in that little mind of hers. So she wanted to go up and say hello to him. She's probably actually been quite lonely. We don't know how much time Tundi has spent with Tlalamba, or if she's moved away from her for now. It seems very early. At a year old, that seems ridiculously early for a female leopard to leave her offspring, even a female cub, who usually become independent a little bit sooner. Magic Dragon Wizard, one of our greatest viewer names. Magic Dragon Wizard would like to know if Tlalamba will be all right now on her own if Tundi does not return to her. Probably. Most likely. I'm not going to pretend that it's ideal. She could have used another few months of guidance. She would only really have been ready to become independent at sort of between 15 to 18 months old. So it's a little bit soon. Sooner even than Tamba, who had a couple of months on her before Tundi moved off to mate and then have Tlalamba. But yes, I think she could be fine. She can hunt. She can get her own food. What we'll probably find is that she does what Shungile did when Karula disappeared, and that's spend a lot of time when she's really hungry catching things like terrapins. Now, a terrapin, I think we've got a terrapin shell. A terrapin is not a very... No, we don't. Or a tortoise. A tortoise would work. Not a very meaty meal. There is some sort of, there's some nutrients to it, but of course the leopard's got to get through the hard casing of the shell. So she'd actually have to bite into that. But it's something that young leopards do to get to the flesh inside. Now, this Speke's hinge tortoise would be a good example of the sort of size tortoise that she would be able to bite through at this age. Lots of impala lambs as well, so she'll probably be okay. We don't know anything for certain, but she certainly has the survival skills within her. Right, speaking of survival skills, we've watched the Olololo Pride go from 4 lions to 16, and what a marvelous job the females have done.
Well, when it comes to survival, I would see Talamba maybe in future as the princess of Juma once Tandy is out of the stage. Who knows? Now, I don't see this youngster male here becoming, like the prince of this area or the Olololo area, because once males get a little old, 2.5 years, as he flicks his tail there, they're always either shown the doors by their mothers, and if they don't leave, we'll get the territorial males or the pride males in a particular area or territory will come and forcibly throw them out of the pride. So this is one youngster of the Olololo Pride of Lions, for those who are joining us now, who have never joined us before. And we're in the Mara Triangle, and not very far from the Olololo escarpment, and that escarpment gave them their name. They always hung around near the escarpment. Initially we had about 10 together, and I moved down another 300, 400 yards or so meters and found this particular youngster not very far from the rest. To his right there was another one. I can't see it now. Maybe it must have moved, and the direction James is showing you is where they were. Whichever way you like to know the Olololo territory size. Now, give or take, they venture at such a big area, and I would estimate it to be about 40 to 60 square kilometers. 40 to 60 square kilometers, and that's not a bad acreage for such a big pride, because Denjavu, when they're all together, they're 16 in number, and 16 translates to a huge territory which would cover much ground because they will need lots of prey. Now, the migration has been around for a couple of months. Most of it is gone down to Tanzania, so the Olololos now are left bringing down the dangerous animals like what we saw a few days ago. They're trying to bring down a hippo, and then after hippos, they're left with 3 other choices: buffaloes or giraffes. Giraffes they can manage, and we have seen them not once in a while trying to bring down baby giraffes. Buffaloes is always a bit tricky, because once in a while we have seen buffaloes turning tables and going towards the same lions. Hello there. They look full to me. The first 10 we saw, the bellies looked fine. You can look at this one, the belly also looks fine. And it's not panting at all. It's just normal breathing from what you can see on the belly, because the temperatures have really gone down. Having started mid-80s or about, high 20s, the temperatures have really gone down, and should anything happen, they might go for a hunt. Initially it was drizzling. It has now since stopped, and it could be a good time for them maybe to go venture and look for something to hunt for themselves. Well, James Henry is thinking of different predators. Let's find out what predators or where he is currently.
I am sitting with the hyenas still. I have not moved. There are Pretty's 2 cubs, provisionally named Calvin and Revlon. And everybody, that little thing walking off to the middle of your screen, 61% of you think he should be called Plonk at this stage. We'll only finalise that at the end of the drive. But 61% of you thus far think that little fellow should be called Plonk. I think that's wonderful. I thoroughly approve. You do still have a little bit of time to change your minds. I'm not going to move the car. I know there are lots of sticks in the way. I just don't want them to rush back into the hole when I start the car. So I'm just going to let them wander about without my doing that. I think that would be the nicest thing for me to do. Ooh, a bit of a vom. How lovely. Now, I mean, if there's one thing more evil than hyena dung, hyena vomit must surely take that cake. Very nervous with just the matriarch around, our pretty's youngsters. See how they are being extremely submissive to her, of course, and they scuttle away every time I'm not sure what she does, maybe she just burps. Oh, here we go, another vom. It's fun. See? Yes, Paul, I'm sorry. Apparently you're eating yogurt. Genre, can you get onto the hyena that's got its whatnot sticking out, for want of a better term? Now, I have called that a female, and I am just seeing if I agree with myself. You see, it looks a bit pinched on the end there. Now, I assumed that was the female because she's bigger than the other one. That looks like a male. I'd be very interested in Jamie Patterson's opinion. I just assumed that one was male and one was female and one was bigger than the other, and therefore the female. Might be at this stage of their lives that the males are bigger, and that androstenedione that makes the males so much, or that makes the females bigger than the males, is not in fact yet active. Well, let's go across to Pajamas Patterson and get her expert hyena opinion.
Only thing I can say about trying to determine the sex of hyena cubs this young is almost. In other words, if you want to give it a go, I find it incredibly difficult. Yes, it looks pinched. I think I agree with James that the larger cub is female. Females do have a little bit of a pinch towards the end of the phallus. It's a really difficult thing to do, and the researchers get it wrong. And I mean, they know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for, and they get it wrong all the time with cubs. That's why they try and do it in 3 sort of independent stages. There is actually very little physical sexual dimorphism between male and female hyenas in terms of size. So this is something we all believed, and I believed up until relatively recently. New research seems to suggest that rather than being, oh, there's elephants. I'll show you in a sec. Rather than being unequal in size, it's actually just the dominance of the females that gets them better access to food, so they're not as necessarily they look bigger, they're better fed. So there's actually very little physical difference between males and females in terms of size, and I don't think it's pure male and female that determines that's resulted in that size difference between Pretty's cubs. Hello, ladies. It's the baby. It's James's baby. Look. You know that's a one. Hey, tiny weeny thing. Oof. What to do now, Kirst? What to do? Watch the little baby Ellie for a little bit. I think I've made a grievous error, by the way, or I did yesterday. I mentioned that it was short trunks herd. I think there are 2 elephants with short trunks. So I'm not 100% sure that it's the short trunk that we've all come to know and love. I thought that the other elephants in her herd just looked a little bit too big. I think there's 2 short-trunked elephants. Hello, ladies. I'm just talking to them. I've been talking the whole time. They know that they're around a camp. Oop, she wants that leaf. I know that they're around a camp, so they're accustomed to seeing people here. We're far less likely to give them a fright. The wind's blowing our scent straight towards them. Oh, big girl. So we'll just keep talking. We're not trying to hide from them. We're not trying to pretend we're not here. She's brought them here. So obviously they know that they're likely to encounter people around here. Oh, this one is terribly cute. It's having a little scratch and a little rest. This is one of the things that we love so much about being out here in the tent. Yes, we get to dissect the nuances of our characters' histories, but actually we get moments like this as well, and the animals tend to be very comfortable with us. Hi, big girl. You brought your baby here. You brought her to me. Hi, my girl. Talking to them, of course, makes absolutely no difference in their lives. I'm talking at them. They don't understand what I'm saying, but they do understand tone. I'm also just making sure that we don't take them by surprise, especially with a calf that is that small. So she has seen us. So when I'm talking to them, it's not because I think they understand me, as much as I would like to pretend otherwise. It's a combination of reading their body language and responding in kind. Probably on their way towards Gallagher Waterhole. Right. We cannot afford to let ourselves get too distracted, otherwise we won't finish up what we wanted to talk about today. Now, we've spoken about the biggest threat to Tlalamba being another male leopard. And speaking of another male leopard, we have indeed caught up with Hukumuri this week.
Hukumuri finally returned to Djuma, providing me with my first opportunity to acquaint myself with his famous, penetrating gaze. Intimidating he may be, but as far as I can tell, rumours of his hunting prowess have been greatly exaggerated. Or perhaps he simply has a special gift when it comes to hunting warthogs. Either way, legomorphs are not his thing. Again and again, the scrub hares easily evaded his clumsy attempts, making the fearsome cat look, well, a little bit silly. Eventually, Hukumuri stopped trying to hunt wabbits and transferred his attention to some unsuspecting impala. This didn't go according to plan either, and he stalked off into the darkness in a futile attempt to regain some dignity.
Well, obviously, poor Hukumuri did at least find some success, because apparently he has a kill on the southern portion of Djuma, or just on the south of Djuma. So he has actually managed to catch himself something. I know we should really be talking about leopards, but this is just such a lovely moment that I haven't been able to tear my eyes away from it. Now, Hukumuri, where he is at the moment, it's quite far east. It's a lot further east than he's been in a while, as far as I know. Now, I know that he pretty much established a boundary right through the centre of Djuma with Tingana, but then he sort of pushed back further west and west, and we haven't seen him all the way east in quite a period of time. Don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if perhaps Tingana's been a bit lax with his scent marking. Trish, you want to know if Hukumuri is actually, in fact, in Tingana's territory? I haven't fully established in my own mind exactly where Tingana's territorial boundary is with Hukumuri, so it's difficult to say for certain. I'm trying to think where the furthest west is that I've seen Tingana in the last few months, and I have to say I don't think I've seen him. No, I've seen him in Treehouse Dam, so yes, he's very close, if not in Tingana's territory. Also, remember that territorial boundaries are they're not set in stone. It's not a wall between neighbours. It's elastic, and it changes, and it moves backwards and forwards depending upon where each individual is at that exact moment. Right. We're going to stand and enjoy this stunning scene in front of us. But speaking of Hukumuri, let's go through to Lauren with the rogue himself.
Perfect find. We're back with the Hukumuri, who was facing us and giving us a delightful view, but has just decided to turn his back to us. And it is worth noting he is on a boundary line that we're not able to traverse, so we're getting a perfect view of him from the main road. Now, we are actually right next to the tree which has his kill, this impala, so he's turned his back on it, but he's in very close proximity to it. He's not going to let that kill out of his sight. We didn't get any luck with Hosanna, I'm afraid, but at least we have this leopard here. Now, Hukumuri is famous for his warthog kills, so he did earn himself quite a reputation for killing the warthogs, but as you can see, he also enjoys and regularly misses scrub hares. So he was born in 2011, so that of course will make him 7 years old. So he's definitely a lot older than Hosanna, definitely a dominant male, but younger than Tingana himself. So leopards are famous here for settling on termite mounds. They must love the coolness of the termite mound and the view it gives them, the 360 view it gives them of everything around him. So you can see he's just lounging on top of this mound. And when he does feel peckish again, when he's ready for a snack, he will come along, hoist himself up the tree and continue feasting on the impala for supper. We were hoping he would have been up by now, but he's obviously feeling lazy and probably had enough food to keep him going for now. There we go. Show us your face, Hukumuri. And funnily enough, Hukumuri actually means chicken medicine. Can you believe it? MGM has commented, Hukumuri's nickname is the Hook. Actually, yes, that's a perfect nickname for him, the Hook. Just like the Hulk, but instead edited the Hook. I like it. H-U-K instead of H-O-O-K. So it doesn't look like Hukumuri is going to move at the moment, but we will stay with him. So while we do that, let's go over to James with his cute little hyenas.
Here we are with our cute little hyenas, everybody. Still suckling, very, very thirsty is the little youngster of the matriarch. And Pretty has yet to return to feed her to. Now, I'd love to know from you what you thought. As Jamie, well, perhaps not as Jamie thought, I thought perhaps I had made a mistake about the bigger one, and that the bigger one might be a male. I'm just thinking that because I did see the penis or pseudo-penis sticking out, and it seemed to have a pinched end to it. Now that's how we tell the difference, but maybe, I think it'd be easier, definitely much easier to see the difference if we could see both of them. And so what I was saying just before I linked to Jamie was that I think it's possible that the androstenedione, which is the hormone that the females have in abundance that makes them so big, so sort of similar to testosterone, maybe it only starts later on in their development. Marilyn, very difficult to say. It's a highly inconvenient organ through which they give birth and through which they must mate. And in fact, first-time mothers often lose their cubs because of the awkward manner in which the fetus has to make its way out into the birth canal from the uterus and then into the world. So that's a little awkward. But it's got something to do with the amount of masculine hormone that the females carry. And that has in some way designed them with this, or given them the design of this pseudo-penis. I mean, I imagine that evolution could have blessed them with a slightly less awkward design, so I don't think it's just the hormone that's responsible for it. I suspect that it's got something to do with the dominance that they show, that they display. But I wonder if that answer isn't lost somewhere in the mists of evolutionary time, because it really is a very inconvenient thing to have, but for the purposes of greeting and showing dominance, but as an organ of mating or of birthing new hyenas is really very awkward indeed, especially for first-time mums. And of course it was the reason that so many people thought that hyenas were hermaphrodites to start with. I forget exactly who it was initially. I think it went all the way back to... Did it go back as far as one of the ancient Greeks? Or Herodotus? No, it wasn't Herodotus. I think it was one of the ancient Greeks, actually. But I don't remember, naturally, because I haven't repeated the fact in the last 2 or 3 days, which means that it's now gone from my head, which is unfortunate. I think it's quite easy to find. I will find it for you, in fact. Give me 1 second. I remember where it was that I saw it. Let me just have a quick look here, while you enjoy the joy of these little hyenas. I don't know where Pretty is. All right, while I search for this thing, I'm pretty sure I'll find it fairly quickly. Let's go back across to Jamil Patterson, who has got more to share on the dangers and perils that Tlalamba has faced.
There's another similarity between leopard cubs and hyena cubs, and that's not goes a little bit beyond the spots. And that is the fact that apart from, in the case of leopards, other male leopards, they both face a very similar threat. There is one predator out here that is a threat to each and every single other predator if it were to encounter them, particularly where the young are concerned. Now, apart from Hukumuri, Thandi would have been the most focused on keeping a Tlalamba safe and away from lions, and a lot of the instinct would have played a lot of that part in Tlalamba's process of growing up. She would have instinctively responded to the presence of lions by being afraid, and I saw that with my puppy when she was little. When we showed her the scent of a lion, where a male lion had scent marked, she immediately, at about 2 months old, got a serious fright and tried to climb underneath the seat of the car. So it just goes to show that fear is ingrained in most animals. And fortunately for Tlalamba, when she was a little bit younger, that fear actually saved her life. This is her up at the top of a marula tree, fortunately safe and sound away from the attentions of the Nkuhumas. Now, lions can climb, but they cannot climb as high as leopards can. And leopards, of course, are a great deal lighter than lions, and they are much more nimble and much more agile and quite a lot better at climbing. Now, lions, on the other hand, are a bit slow and a bit sort of muscle-bound. Now, that paid off for Tlalamba in that particular instance, as it did for Hosanna not so long ago. So sometime, probably around about 2 or 3 in the morning, looking at the tracks, we're guessing, that is when he had his lucky escape from that male lion. And you can just imagine the scene of him shooting up the tree. Yes. Leah, if Tlalamba and Hosanna were to mate, it would be inbreeding. It would also, however, be a natural part of the way that these animals interact with each other. So he is her uncle. Yes, he's her uncle. He is Thandi's younger half-brother, therefore her uncle. He is also, because Tingana is his father and Tingana is Tlalamba's father, he is also her half-sibling. So if he were to mate with her, it would be inbreeding. Would that stop them? No. once Kalamba comes of breeding age and will actually coincide with Hosanna's first ventures into the truly adult world of the leopard kingdom, he would actually potentially mate with her. And I even suggested half-jokingly that the next thing that we're going to find is that we're going to come around the corner and Thandi, having realized she can no longer intimidate Hosanna, will be starting sort of transferring her attentions to a more flirtatious approach. Most big cats can survive about 6 generations of inbreeding before it becomes a problem. So it's not something we need to be concerned about. As far as we know or suspect, Thandi's father was also Karula's father. So he mated with his daughter Karula, who then gave birth to Thandi and Shadow. Nothing too serious to worry about. Right, off you go across to the Maasai Mara, who of course are an hour ahead of us, which means the sun has dipping below the horizon.
Well, I'm watching the sun go down, and that is the very end, excuse me, of the Uluru Escarpment, and that is what I would call the western horizon. Beautiful, great colors there, as maybe my day could be coming to an end. I left my lions because they're very sleepy, very flat, not doing much. But I'm trying to imagine if it was a cheetah that I had. A cheetah could be very mobile. The cheetah population roam freely between the Mara and the Serengeti. We were lucky to spot a young unknown male near the escarpment, a little distant from the border. The young fellow stalked confidently, scent marking and climbing trees for vantage points to survey the range. Young cheetahs will sometimes return to the area where they were denned. This could have been the case here. It is possible that this young cheetah has returned to a childhood haunt. We hope he'll hang around long enough for us to know who he is. Welcome back live. Now, this particular male cheetah is a cheetah we have not seen before. Around the Mara Triangle, we follow cheetahs as our characters. The two particular ones that we have followed and we know very well, two females, one called Kakenya and another one called Naratoi. This one looked very new to us, and we do not know where he came from. And unlike leopards and lions that are very territorial, cheetahs got very huge home ranges. So it could be here today, tomorrow it could be like another hundreds of kilometers away. So it's very difficult to follow them if they don't stick in the same area. As I say, leopards are very territorial, lions, same case, but cheetahs keep moving from one area to another. Now, I'm looking at the very end of the horizon, and what I'm seeing is a huge wall of rain, and wondering whether this rain will be coming to where we are, and it's quite a distance from where we are. So what you want to do is just move a little forward. James, are you able to get that rain from a distance? Look at that. It's a huge wall of rain. Blender, very good. You see it's an awesome sky. Huge two walls that I can see from where I am, Blender. I do not know what season you could be having, Blender, where you come from, but at the moment here, we just started the short trains. And to me, they could be short, but they look very heavy. From what you can see there, this is more or less, I would say, southeast. They look like they'll be very big rains. Look at those heavy clouds up there. And it's so quiet. And no wonder those lions slow down the olololos and just tuck themselves to try and keep their body temperatures and keep their body heat. And just catch the final controls. That's pretty beautiful. Remember, when we hear you talking to us, you make us engaged and happy. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, should you have any questions or comments. And also, you can keep following us on the YouTube chat stream. Look at that sky there. Beautiful colors. And every morning when you wake up and see the sunrise and you finish your day like this, it couldn't be any better. So that's the backdrop of the Uluru Escarpment, and where it comes down the other side is the boundary between Kenya and Tanzania. So the Mara Triangle Game Reserve neighbors Serengeti National Park, and this is the whole area where we'll have the migration, roaming, or the wildebeest moving from one side to the other. Well, I'll try to move on as the sun is going down there, and I think maybe James got more active animals than my lions in Juma.
I do. I have got the hyenas here, and I am pleased to report that I think I was correct initially. The one at the back there eventually developed an erection to show us exactly what was going on there, and it looks to me that he is a male. It's definitely more pinched on the end than the females, so I'm pretty sure that what we have there is the male that you're looking at, and then the female in front. Phew! Starting to doubt myself. It was very dangerous. Rosalind, they don't breed every year, but they often centre around the same den, yes. And so when these chaps disappear from this den site, what you will find is that we will then start searching all the known den sites that there are, because we know that they go back to them. And on Juma, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 known den sites. And there are probably a few more we don't know about. So it is entirely possible that there are further den sites around here. But of course they don't come back to them every year necessarily, because they don't breed every year. So Corky, if this cub lives to adulthood, will probably not breed again for the next 3 years or so, 2 to 3 years. But that's not to say the other females in the clan won't come and have youngsters at this particular termite mound. Beautiful little things, aren't they? And I wonder where Pretty is. I'm not sure why their mother shouldn't be here. Anyway, we're going to sit here, see if Pretty gets here eventually. Hukumuri remains in his tree with Lauren.
He hasn't moved much at all, has he? We have waited. I did feel that he was going to get up and come across to the kill in the tree, but unfortunately our amazing hunter here has just plonked down on top of the termite mound and is not doing very much. Now, of course, the sun is starting to set now. We will lose light very soon. And the sky is heavy with clouds, so I'm not sure if rain is expected again tonight like last night, but it's definitely not a clear night sky. Now, predators can use this weather to their advantage, of course, because the wind can drown out lots of different sounds of their arrival and their scent, of course. So Mr. Hukumuri here is probably very relaxed and using this kind of windy weather to his advantage, and that's possibly maybe where he got the impala from. Now, there was impala wandering around just a few minutes ago, but of course he didn't spend much time being interested in them because he already has one up a tree. So I wonder what he's done today to be this exhausted. And it doesn't look very comfortable to me, but clearly it is comfortable to the hook here. Now, Tingana and Hukumuri's I just got that question there. I was mid-sentence. Is there any news that Tingana is nearby? Can you just confirm that's what the question was, Kirst? Yes. I haven't heard any news about Tingana the past few days. The last time we sighted him was that lovely memory that we shared with you. So, yes, we don't actually know where Tingana is, but these two males, Hukumuri and Tingana, will clash. They are both the most dominant territorial males within this area. It would definitely be interesting to see. But the reason Tingana was sent marking the other day was because Hukumuri was close. So they're both ready to defend their territories at any moment's notice. Although it doesn't look like it right now with our sleepy spotted cat. And hopefully tomorrow we can find Hosanna. He's never been this difficult to find before. But at least we did get one of the main leopards for you. So we will stay in case he does get up at any moment's notice. It's definitely worth the wait. And while we do wait, let's go over to Jamie, who's still in the tent.
In the tent, I confess, I find it very difficult to stay cooped up for too long, particularly when there's elephants around. This burning desire to go out and watch them and look at them. So there's Mum and her little one in the background. Now, the idea behind these safari lives is to focus as much as possible on the animal that we're talking about, but it's a difficult thing to do when the evening is just so thoroughly pleasant. Barely a breath of wind, the temperatures dropped nicely. Oh, as I said that, the wind started blowing. Sound of the Cape turtle dove. Woodland's kingfisher. Woodland kingfisher, which all of a sudden, from being completely absent, are now calling at every moment of the hot summer's days. Lovely out here. Now, we've spent the entire time this afternoon talking about little Tlalamba and her growth from a tiny fluff ball to the distinguished princess that she has become. Now, this week we were fortunate enough to catch up with her and to see what she got up to all on her own.
Tlalamba seems to have ensconced herself on Torchwood in the absence of her mother. The little princess has outgrown her cub looks, and every time we see her, she seems to carry herself with a little more grace and dignity. She may not resemble Tundi physically, but she certainly inherited her mother's confidence. Maturity and curiosity go hand in hand where young leopards are concerned, and Tlalamba seems to have found the balance. Our little lady has to rely on her own wits and common sense to keep herself safe.
Our Ellies have disappeared off. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not Tundi will actually return to Tlalamba. I wouldn't count it out of the realms of possibility yet. I don't think she's left her at this point, but I'm not 100% sure. It seems like a long period for her to be away from Tlalamba. There was some speculation as to whether or not she might be pregnant or she could be pregnant. Again, it does seem very soon, but stranger things have happened, especially with, her sister Shadow often became pregnant very, very quickly after having raised a cub. So we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. Bright Night, no, Karula didn't really leave her cubs independent early, I don't think. I might be mistaken about that. I know that when I started here, Quarantine and Kunumo had just left their mother's territory, and that they were sort of independent at around about 2 years old. So as far as I know, no, I didn't believe that to be the case with Karula, but I suppose it could be something that is a family trait. Not 100% sure. It's always very different with females and males, because males take that much longer to become independent, which makes sense because when they do become independent, unless they're Hosanna, they mostly have to move off away from their mother's territory, which is obviously a much bigger, scarier, wider world. So they put that off for as long as possible, where females often become independent slightly sooner. I was quite convinced Hosanna was going to come and finish us. Oh, visit us, sorry, not finish us. That didn't make any sense. Chris Rowe, you said that Karula didn't do that. I didn't think she did. But again, obviously, I only arrived here in 2015 when she was, or before she gave birth to her final litter. So I wasn't 100% sure, but I didn't think that she did that. I thought that she looked after them all the way through. Let's wait and see what Thandi does. Who knows exactly what the explanation is behind her behavior, why she's done what she has done, and why she's left little Tlalamba as soon as she has. She might just be back. Either way, at least we know that Tlalamba does have the skills to survive. And the good news is, I know you're all worried about Hukumuri. He's far away from where Tlalamba is. Tlalamba's actually situated sort of dead in the center of Tingana's territory, which is the best, safest possible place for her to be. She's got to keep out of reach of quarantine, although I think that quarantine probably would be okay with her. So as long as she stays to the east, she's going to be fine until she's old enough to mate, at which point, of course, it becomes an entirely different level of interest from Hukumuri's side. Right, and that brings us to the conclusion of this, the 26th episode of Safari Lives. I still cannot believe how far into the year we truly are. All that remains is for us to say a very big thank you to all of you. Thank you for your questions and comments. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the Sunrise Safari. What a week it has been. We can only look forward to the next one.